And I am very happy to be here with the British Council and going worldwide, having the chance to meet many other teachers, because I strongly believe in teachers being connected and working collaboratively all together. So that for me is fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Good. Today we're dealing with big ideas for little minds. But if we analyze the title before going into STEAM, just by reading this title, you know that by little minds, I only mean the size they have, but not the abilities or the skills they have, because the little ones have really big minds. So why not provide lots of big ideas for those little minds in size, but not in skills or abilities? So we will work on big ideas related to STEAM. We will work on STEAM in the Young Learners EFL class. And as Joanne said before, there are lots of acronyms here today. But before going into those acronyms, I would love it if you could solve this quote by Steve Jobs. Perhaps you can write your answers on the chat. Can you use the words around the speech bubble or the center where the phrase starts with everybody think, and you have how, because, program, should, computer, to. What do you think? What is the phrase Steve Jobs said? What is it? Let's see. I'm reading the chat and I can see people from Uruguay, people from different places of the world, Pakistan. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is fantastic, Madrid. Great. Great. Everybody what? What do you think he said? Everybody should learn to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. And how is this possible? How does this apply to young learners? What do you think? How is this connected to young learners and the EFL classroom? It has to do with critical thinking. It has to do with collaboration, with curiosity, with dealing with failure, with communication, with creative thinking. So, of course, we're not going to deal with computer programming today, because I'm not an expert on that, and I am far from being an expert on that. But we will see how all of these things that are related to the way or learning to how to program a computer have to do with our young learners and STEAM. When you learn about computers and programming computers, all of these things that you can see around the phrase are put on the table, you need to try, and we work a lot with trial and error, with cause and effect, and things that are perhaps related to science, not only technology, that have to do with the computer. So this is what we're going to deal with today. The idea of connecting things and to see how they help us and our students, and how to connect this idea of helping our students with the different disciplines and the different areas and the different skills within the English class. Okay, are you ready? Shall we start? Do you agree with this, that everybody should learn to program a computer because it teaches you how to think? All of the skills mentioned here are related to thinking, and they help you develop your thinking skills. And we can also talk about the 21st century skills, and not only the linguistic skills we are used to talking about when teaching a language. So the idea is to integrate all of these topics today. But I said we were going to talk about acronyms, and these are the ones I have. We are dealing with STEAM, and somebody wrote on the chat what STEAM stands for. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, the arts, and maths. So we will see the definition, a proper definition for STEAM later on. But the idea is we are integrating all of these areas, all of these disciplines within our class. We will see how today. We will see ideas, and we will see whether you want to have a STEAM subject, and what you do is you teach STEAM and only STEAM in English as a foreign language, or if you want to include STEAM in your lessons. So these are two different possibilities we have, dealing with STEAM as a subject when teaching a language. Of course, this depends on the kind of school you work at, the kind of groups you have, the kind of decisions you can make in the place where you work at, whether you want to have it as a whole subject and you cover all of the areas, or you want to have little tiny projects within your EFL class. But let's define some other things. Are we talking about EFL, ESL, or EAL? We can talk about English as another language, not our mother tongue. And we nowadays talk about, because of globalization, because of how the world is growing and connecting, we can talk about English as an additional language because of multiculturality. We can also talk about English as a foreign language or English as a second language. So no matter the kind of English we are teaching, whether it is an additional language, a foreign language, a second language, or which of these acronyms you believe in, the idea is to include STEAM in your lessons, because English is definitely not our mother tongue. And that's why we are here sharing these ideas. So STEAM in the English class, that would be like the summary for this slide. Sir Ken Robinson said, our task is to educate our students, their whole being, so they can face the future. You may not see the future, we may not see the future, but they will. And our job is to help them make something of it. This is taken from The Element, how finding your passion changes everything. And passion is something I strongly believe in, especially when teaching. And I think that passion is what we transmit and what helps us bond with our students, definitely bond with them. But going back to Sir Ken Robinson and his quote, it is our task to educate the whole of our students, the whole of their being, so they can face the future. So we know English, if this is not their mother tongue, we know English is a great tool. It is something they will need in the future. But there are other things we can teach and we can include in our lessons to teach the whole of our learners. So if we are thinking about our students' future, what we need to do is to start thinking about the skills, the competencies we need to include in our lessons. And that's why we are here today. So what is STEAM education? I said we were dealing with the definition. According to the Institute of Arts, Integration and STEAM, STEAM education is an approach to learning. And this approach uses science, technology, engineering, the arts, and mathematics as access points for guiding student inquiry, dialogue, and critical thinking. So these are the skills, these are the competencies we need to work on. And if we go back to Steve Jobs' quote, and we were talking about teaching our students how to think, because they will learn how to think through critical thinking, through inquiry, through creating this moment when they are doubting, when they say, how come? Is this possible? When we give them the chance to create a different scenario from the one we are providing them with. So let's get into the practical part. Let's see. We need to have in mind that STEAM gives us the chance to work on 6 different steps and reasons why we think this could be like the benefits and the reasons at the same time why we are dealing with STEAM. So we can separate this into 6 different stages, and these are the things we're doing with our students. The big words are focus, detail, discovery, application, presentation, and link. Why focus? Because what we do is we give them the chance to identify a problem, or we have an essential question we need to focus on. Why detail? Because we help them observe and we ask them to document the elements that contribute to the question. Discovery, they do lots of research and we teach skills, and they go through different processes and they seek connections. This is what I was talking about, this idea of, okay, why? To put them in the place where they are in doubt and they need to choose a path. Application, use your discovery to create a new solution. So when they are standing in this doubt and they say, okay, what can I do? They need to make decisions here and create a new solution. And then there will be a presentation. The presentation has to do with the sharing your solutions. They are going to share with the others. They are going to say, okay, this is what we did. This is our solution to the problem. And we go back to the question, the essential question we mentioned before. So what we did not know how to solve, and we got the question, was solved this way by me, by my group, and I am sharing it. I am presenting this. And they also need to be ready for feedback. They also need to justify why they've made certain decisions. And then they will link, because when there is lots of collaborative work in STEAM, and when they see other people's work and they see the final products they got in different project work, they will start connecting and analyzing and considering other people's ideas and saying, wow, this is useful for me. This is fantastic. But, oh, I will take this idea and modify my version or not. So they will revise their solution. And this has to do with STEAM. So this is the process that was mentioned before. These are like the steps we're going to follow. So let's start with a simple example, a humble topic, let's say. Let's talk about science and plants. What happens with plants? So I suggest you reading with your students. So we bring some literature from our English lesson, EAL, EFL, ESL. You bring some input through a story. I suggest reading, in the case of plants, From Seed to Plant. You have the information here. This is a fantastic story where you will work on the process. You're relating this to factual information. It is not the traditional story where you have fiction and fairy tale, and not in this case. We will see afterwards what to do with other stories. But we're going to work on the life cycle of a plant. So you bring factual information. Now, how much do you know? How much do your students know about this? So how much do they know about plants? We need to create a challenge, and STEAM is based on challenges, on this idea of, and how can I, and what? And so we need to set a question as a challenge. So as I said, a STEAM challenge is an open-ended challenge that requires students to solve a problem with materials you provide. And you will see the word material that will appearing many times in the presentation, because it is just a visual reminder for you. We need to have material, the materials we're going to use very clear, because we need to talk about the things and how to get to that solution and what we provide them with to get to that solution. So why have I chosen this topic? Because it is related to the real world, because I bring pictures of my favorite plants to classes. I bring pictures of a hummingbird I've been chasing with my camera for the whole of the pandemic, the year 2020. When I was inside, I could see a hummingbird coming to my window every single day, and I ran with my camera to take a picture. So the moment I took the picture, I shared that with my students, because I was telling them about this hummingbird that was coming to my favorite plant. I couldn't have both together, the picture of the plant, but here I have these. So my idea is, I am connecting the real world, and the real world is related to science, but also the real world. I am part of the real world. I am part of my students' real world. So this has to do with social emotional learning too, connecting with your students and bringing things that really happen to you in your house, that are actually happen to them in their houses. Do you have plants at home? Have you ever seen a hummingbird? So it is connecting the real world to the different topics that have to do with the plant. This is how I introduced the topic. I brought my plant. We talked about, this is a plant I grew in well, it's not my garden, because it is in one of my windowsills, but it is my favorite plant. So this is my plant. Okay, and let's see, what are you curious about plants? How is it that plants grow? What do we need? Or what do plants need to have them grow? So this is like my starting topic, and I need to think of a question. So as I relate this from the big topic of the life cycle of a plant, then I start like deconstructing STEAM into the different disciplines. And I work on science. So science has to do with keeping records, and scientists have their journals. Well, and this is something we can do. So my big question here was, can you build the different parts of a flower? Another question, can you watch a flower grow? So materials there, which are the materials we need to see and analyze flowers, to see how they grow? So can we have a magnifying glass and some pliers and some different elements, and we teach new elements to show them how these grow, to see the different parts. So we're going to work on what they observe. There we will have lots of observations here. They will observe the different parts of the flower. We can observe, have a look at the two pictures we have below. I've learned when working with science that we need to teach science-related topics through realia. If you can bring an elephant into the classroom when dealing with elephants, that would be great. I know that could be a little bit complicated, at least in Argentina. But if you can take your students to see a real elephant, if you can take, and I know this changes worldwide, but if you are dealing with plants, try to leave the animated, the designed drawings and pictures and clip arts and whatever for the end of the topic. Start working with the more realistic picture or the real thing. Bring realia into the classroom. So bring real plants, show real plants, show me a real plant and show me the different parts of the plant. And we will start observing these. So keeping record of what I observe in my plant journal. And let's concentrate on the ages. If we're talking about very young learners, kids who are 4 or 5. Can they keep record of this? Absolutely, yes. They can draw. They can draw. And when what they observe and what they draw will be fixed in their minds. They need to write it down. They cannot read or write yet, or we're not forcing them to write, at least here in the second language at that age. So what we are doing is helping them to recognize, to identify the different parts of the plant through drawings, their own productions. So what they see is drawn on a page, and this has the journal. You can work on this individually, in groups, or as a big group, and you have a poster on the wall with our plant journal. But you talk about this, you analyze this, and you write it somewhere there. So the materials, you can see the magnifying glass here, the pliers, you can see the tray, you can see different plants, and some plants were cut to see how, and I'm not going to mention the different parts of the plant, but so that you can see what happens below the soil, what is happening under the soil there. So a real image, then we go into illustrated ones, but realia for science. So we're dealing with science in the EFL class. Now, can you build the different parts of a flower? Can you watch a flower grow? That could be like our objective, our main aim today. Have you ever seen these jars in a classroom? Was it an EFL or an ESL or an EAL classroom? Or was it the science classroom? Can we connect both topics? So if we want to go deeper, what we do is we visit the web and we look for real stuff. We look for videos, we look for authentic materials related to the life cycle, and you will find lots of authentic materials related to this. And you, of course, you need to classify this. Of course, you need to watch the video with your students. So we're talking about materials again. And can you have these growing jars with your students? Can you create this? Can we talk about the elements we need? How many growing jars have you done, have you experienced in your lives as students? I have experienced many in many different moments. Perhaps can't remember whether in Quinta I worked on one, but in primary school I did more than once. In secondary school, we went deeper there. How many of them survived? How many of them were successful? That's like the big question, you know. But the good thing here is that we will stop and see why. We will talk about failure. We will see what happens when the seed does not turn into a plant. So we will see and we will analyze this all together. So remember, for science, we will always have the real stuff. Now, when working with young learners, working with the arts, it is like, okay, we make them draw, we make them color, but there are other things we can do with the arts, and there are lots of things we can put into practice. Once they are familiar with the different parts of the plant, we can help them model with some Play-Doh, with plasticine, the different things we've seen. So instead of having the plant journal with their drawings, we go further, a step further. And what they are doing now is they are modeling this. And by doing this, we're working with their fine motor skills. According to Piaget and the developmental stages, we know we need to work on this. The fine motor skills, the gross and fine motor skills need to be worked in class. So we can help them develop those fine motor skills by modeling. We are the EFL teacher, the ESL, ERL, we are the English teacher. Do I have to cope with fine motor skills? Yes, you can. You are helping your student develop their skills, the skills they need for the future. So working with Play-Doh, working with paper and creating the beautiful flowers. And as you can see, we will have like different types of flowers here. So we will analyze how these flowers are made, how these flowers are created with their own hands, and what the different parts of these flowers are according to the different models we have. You can see another image there where you have plants that were created with pieces of wool, you know? I used to do these when I was a kid, and we created pom-poms out of wool, and we were winding the wool around a circle, a circle we made with paper, a hard paper circle. So here we are creating the flowers with twigs. So look at this combination. It is not just Play-Doh or plasticine, something they are used to working with perhaps in other subjects, or something they use as part of their free play. We are also working with paper and modeling paper, but also wool and twigs. So we can leave the elements on the table and see how they create their own versions. But when talking about arts, we cannot leave the arts in capital letters aside. We can go and analyze pieces of art that are related to or that show real flowers. And we can go and investigate about the Van Gogh. We can go and investigate about all the different artists who liked drawing, painting flowers. And then we go back and analyze the different parts of these flowers, but these will come automatically from them. They will come and say, oh, look, the stem of these flowers is different or thicker, or so we are comparing and contrasting all the time. We are applying the different skills: creativity, critical thinking skills, collaboration, working all together, communication, putting the message through the things they have acquired. So we've dealt with science, we've dealt with the arts. What about maths? Math is not just a question of numbers. It is not just a question of adding or sums or multiplying, or we can work with shapes. We can work with shapes and putting things together. So I created these two models of a plant with the shapes I took from the computer program. And what about bringing these shapes out of paper? And they have to create their own flower. In this case, they can create their plants. You can provide them with more pieces of paper. So different from, this one, that they model plants in a different way or flowers in a different way. Here we work on shapes. Shapes are related to maths, geometry. So we are connecting shapes. And what's this? The stem. And from the language teacher we have inside, we will start working on the language. This is the stem. Okay, what color is it? It is green. It is bigger than, it is a rectangle. It is bigger than the triangle. The triangle is a leaf. And then we have two leaves here. So we're coping with different different language structures. And perhaps we're not concentrating that much on the complex language that we are including, because the complex language is the one they acquire automatically. If you just want to use simple language or their production is going to be absolutely different from the input we are providing them with. And we know that this is Chomsky's I+1. This is a comprehensible input. This is working with the natural approach. This is working with so many theories together. We bring like different scholars, Krashen, Chomsky, Piaget together, and we're dealing with STEAM, which is science. So we're bringing things they are interested in. We're bringing the +1 in the I+1 is this challenge we're giving them. So we're providing them with more input, and our expectation, language expectation, will be: this is a plant it has a stem, it has got so many leaves, and so but we are connecting them with something that is related to the real world. Look at the one we have below. Again, we are dealing with shapes. Then we can add that I will show you some other activities related to numbers for very young learners later on. But we are connecting, we can count, we can talk about shapes, and we can build, and that's something we will see later on. But we mentioned computational thinking, and we talked about Steve Jobs. And why is it that technology is not only related to computers, you know? Technology is having something that works. Technology can also be related to pattern recognition. Technology has like 4 branches inside. And we talk about decomposition, that is breaking problems into small pieces. So wait, we need to solve this. Let's see how we can work in different parts to have a big solution. We talk about pattern recognition, finding commonly used solutions to repeated problems. So if I do this way many times, I will solve this. Abstraction, recognizing the problem and leaving the details aside, and algorithms, so the steps you follow to solve a problem. So you might say, but Euge, this is like too complex, too complicated for my students. This is information you need to know to see what you are doing. You will not mention any of these concepts with them, but you will bring different things for them to solve. And this is how you connect technology with engineering. What about building a flower? We built a flower with the pieces of paper, the shapes there. We built a flower with plasticine. We built a flower with wool and twigs. What happens with puzzles? And if we go back to technology and the pattern recognition, we are relating it to shapes. And breaking problems into small pieces, that would be related to puzzles too. That is connecting puzzles. So what I am suggesting here is a site that is a free site where you can, if you can scan this QR code, you will see that you will have an image of the life cycle of a plant, and it turns into a puzzle that you have to solve. So I am dealing with the same topic, connecting this with engineering, where they have to solve a puzzle of all the information we've been talking about. We have the different steps of, in this case, you have a lemon tree, but all the different steps that the plant needs to go through within this cycle. So we are connecting this with puzzle solving, with jigsaws solving. So the name of this site is Jigsaw Planet, which is for free. But we also have blocks there. And my question is, have you ever seen a kid with this? What's this? This is a big block, building block, okay? And this building block has lots and lots of different uses for a little one, because it can be a telephone. Have you ever met somebody, a little one, walking with a telephone like this? Yes, and talking as if it were a real telephone. Or it could be like a camera. For me, like this. For the little ones, it would be like this, because they know how to deal with cameras from cell phones now. So never underestimate the power of a set of blocks. What I bring to my classes are different challenges in different bags, you know. So I bring a set of blocks and I give them a challenge. Make the first letter of your name using these building blocks. So a set of 10 blocks for them, building blocks, and they have different challenges. I have another one that says building challenge, write your age using the blocks. So they know there is a special box in the classroom where they have different challenges. So perhaps this is not part of my project, but for those students who finish the activities before the others, they can go fetch one of these plastic bags, fetch the challenge, solve the challenge, and then they put it away. So we're working with STEAM in a different way. We are helping them think. We are helping them solve different challenges. So why should we use blocks? Because blocks help us teachers develop all of these skills in our students: their imagination, their self-expression, problem solving, mathematics, physical development, fine motor skills, gross motor skills in some other cases, creativity. They can do whatever they want. Here they had a challenge, but if you give them a set of blocks, you will see that they will start building and building and building and using their imagination. Science, because they need to see whether this works or not, and we are working with cause and effect. Let's see how high this tower can be, and why is it that it cannot be higher. Self-esteem, frustration, dealing with frustration, with a mistake, and it does not work. And the younger your students are, the angrier they will get when this tower does not stand the height they want it to stand. Then personal, social, and emotional development, communication and literacy. There are lots of skills. We are dealing with a humble set of blocks in a box within your shelf or wherever you keep your class material. So I said we can sometimes work with STEAM as a special subject, an approach that you deal with in English, but you can also have independent lessons or independent challenges for them to solve. If you are dealing with the weather, and perhaps in Buenos Aires, the last time we saw snow, it was in the year 2007, I think. At least in the place where I live. Some other, Buenos Aires is quite big, but near Capital Federal, Greater Buenos Aires, the last time I saw snow was in the year 2007. So if I talk about snow with my students, they might not know what snow is like. So can we create fake snow? Yes, we can. So this will be a STEAM activity you are including in your lesson as something independent from the STEAM class. So you can include different activities within your EFL lesson. This is the recipe to make fake snow with your students. So you can give it a try. Shaving cream, mixing shaving cream and cornstarch together, and you will feel the texture, and it even gets like cold, you know. So you can work with fake cream, with fake snow with your students. Now the challenge is, can we make a rainbow? Let's see. Do we have the skills to make a rainbow? What do we need to happen with science in the sky when we talk about rainbows? How are rainbows made? So again, the idea here is just to bring a patch of sunshine. You don't bring it, you look for it through the window, some sunshine, and with a CD, a DVD that we no longer use, and a white surface. So what are we going to work on? We're going to work on reflection. So you place the CD or the DVD in a bright patch of sunshine and use the shiny side to reflect your rainbows on the white surface that could be the wall. What are you going to work on there? We will talk about light. How come we can create a rainbow here? We can see it, so you can talk about light and sight. And there is no water or cloud or sky involved, just the sunshine from nature. Good. Now, giving directions, and this is a topic I hate teaching. I hate teaching giving directions. So I need to find a way to make it full of movement, things that students are involved and really interested in, and to make it real. So in general, I bring real maps, and I bring and I move the benches and tables, and we create like a city to say, go forward, turn right, turn left. But if you visit, and as I said, you visit the web, you can connect this to technology and engineering, and because the kids who love Minecraft will find this fantastic, and it is related to coding. So if you just Google code or coding and Minecraft, you will find, and this is a suggestion, a website where you can solve different challenges through coding and computational thinking with your students. So that's another suggestion for you. What about sequencing, bringing a little challenge, STEAM challenge into the classroom? You just bring the same picture and you bring it as a puzzle, or they have to solve the puzzle, or even the sequence and putting these ideas together. When we talked about the four pillars of computational thinking, sequencing is within the characteristics of computational thinking. This is another skill our students need to work on. So bringing pictures, and in this is the life cycle, we need to work on the development of this picture and the sequence. So these are like short ideas, humble ideas you can put into practice. You can use lots of visual thinking routines when you ask them to observe. What do you see? What do you think? What would you like to know? So I see this. I think, but I wonder. So we're connecting many skills, as I said from the very beginning. Remember that it is the teacher who brings the problem and gives the students the challenge to find a solution. So the problem is the challenge. The problem is a problem, the challenge that will turn into a question for students to have something to solve and do it as the solution. So there is lots of curiosity implied here. So I said, very young learners, is STEAM available like short activities with young learners? Yes, the moment you bring an oval shape that represents a face, an oval face, and you ask students to make decisions, whether it is a happy face or a sad face, and they move, and you're dealing with the parts of the face, body parts, and you ask them to solve this puzzle, and then to remove one part and create another, and perhaps you're doing STEAM every day. So these are the things we need to take into account to become aware of the things we are doing or we can do, and start including to work on different skills in our ordinary lessons, in our everyday lessons. When working with young learners, they love cookie cutters, you know, and why not creating our own? So the topic is animals, and we work with maths, which is numbers here, or numbers, which is maths here from STEAM, the maths discipline. And though these kind of pasta where they have shapes, so they look for the or traditional cookie cutters. This is just an idea. So you bring the wooden sticks and you place on the wooden stick the different pieces of pasta, and they are counting, they are modeling, they are working on fine motor skills while dealing with numbers, while dealing with animals at the same time. How many butterflies do you have? So the idea is to play with plasticine, with these wooden sticks, pressing them on the plasticine, and to see the shapes of the different animals, and to count them and to feel them. Okay, let's concentrate on one topic. I almost spoiled the activity. So let's see, what animal is this? Ta-da! What do you think this is? Can you see? I am removing some of the circles. What animal is it? I'm going to open the chat right now. A polar bear, an elephant. Oh, let's see. Oh, do you still think it's a polar bear and a sheep? Oh, penguin. Let's see. Somebody said a sheep. Why a sheep? Let's see. Okay, I would be asking my students, why do you think it is a sheep? Why is it a bear? Aha, now you know. Now you know, we can see. So, yes, you're right. Those are penguins. So let's concentrate on penguins for the following topic. So when working with very young learners, they are very interested in animals. They need to know about animals. But we can, again, materials, look at the materials we will have here. We will talk about where penguins live. We will talk about factual information. In the handout, you will see that there is another animal mentioned, and you will see that factual information is the first thing we cover. So bring shapes. We said shapes were related to maths, and give them the shapes to create the animal you're dealing with. So again, now we go to the parts of the face, or the parts of the body parts of the penguin. And we talk about eyes, flippers, beak, feathers, and webbed feet. But what about feathers? Did you know that? So I bring a sensory bag, and I ask my students to feel what feathers are like. So did you know that the penguin's body was covered by feathers? Why? Did you know that the penguin's body is water repellent? That's why they do not get that wet, because they repel water. So this is fantastic information and brand new for the little ones. We are dealing with the parts of the body, and we are dealing with lots of different topics at the same time. Shapes, again, give them shapes and create new penguins. We can give them the task, a challenge, bring plastic straws that I only use for this because I have them at home, or sushi sticks, to build a raft. Can you build a raft, create a raft? What other materials do you need? Masking tape, rubber bands, and let's see if we can create a raft for our penguins. So everything is connected to penguins here. Let's create and bring ice cubes for their sensory skills and fine motor skills, and create an igloo for the penguin. Let's bring another challenge related to coding, and we're helping them. We said, I can share this pattern with you because I designed it on a document.
Eugenia?
Yes.
Eugenia, so sorry to interrupt because this is really interesting, but just to let you know, we need to go to questions soon because we're running out of time. So if you take a minute to explain this one, and then maybe we can do
yes, I include I explain this, and we're finishing. Thank you. So we need to follow the pattern. We know we go with a go forward, and I am giving my students the card box, the card paper with the hard card paper with the different arrows to place. So they need to go step by step, and this is related to coding, computer programming. So we have one path to follow there, and they need to go there. These are different things and activities we deal with when dealing with very young learners and STEAM. So why is STEAM important for our kids? Because it helps students ask questions, connect to the dots, to solve problems, to think creatively, and to be innovative. I will finish with this. Dr. Rabi won the Nobel Prize in 1944 for this work, for his work in physics. He was once asked, where did you become a scientist rather than a doctor, a lawyer, a businessman, like the other immigrant kids in your neighborhood? And he answered, my mother made me a scientist without even intending it. Every other Jewish mother in Brooklyn would ask her child after school, so did you learn anything today? But not my mother. She always asked me a different question. Izzy, she would say, did you ask a good question today? So that difference, asking questions, made me become a scientist. So people, thank you very much. I'm sorry for the last minute rush, I hope you enjoyed it. You can follow me on my Instagram account to learn more about STEAM and what I do, and to get in touch. This is my email address. I have no problem in being in contact worldwide. So thank you very much. Sorry, girls, for the last minute rush.
No worry, thank you. It was so good, and you had so many really inspiring ideas that I didn't want to interrupt you. I think that's been great. And if people have questions that we don't have time for, then thank you so much for offering your email address. So there's a way to get in touch. I think there's just one question from Yelizaveta, and she had her question there really early on. So let's see if we can just squeeze that one in before we finish. So
okay,
she says, am I correct in understanding that English is not part of STEAM, like maths, for example, but the way in which students will learn through this methodology?
In fact, STEAM is an approach to learning. So what is it that you want to teach? The thing is that when we teach English, we teach it as another language. So of course, STEAM for natives works wonders, because they are always doing practical ideas and practical things and experiments and many other things. But the thing is, when you English is part of the arts, in fact, because languages become part of the arts, and you find lots of language within the arts. But we tend to teach language very traditionally through grammar. So what I suggest is that STEAM, in STEAM, we work with projects, and you need to discover the topic through different disciplines. That's what I mean by choosing STEAM to teach English as part of your English class. I don't know if I was clear with the answer to your question.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So it's like double the learning, isn't it? Because it's using English to learn about the world.
That's it. And it would be kind of what specialists do with adults, with English as a means of instruction. When you teach English, when you teach a subject through English, you need to know how to teach it. You need to know about that subject in English. So the same here, you're providing your students with real ideas on real things and factual information while teaching English. So I think it goes hand in hand, STEAM and English lessons together.
Yeah, completely. Well, thank you so much. And I could stay here talking to you all day, asking you about how you plan these projects and how we can help our students to do them. So thank you so much for sharing so much. And as we said before, you've got Eugenia's contact and the handout as well, with all the information from the session. So thank you so much, Eugenia. I'm sorry that we don't have time more.
No, I'm sorry. I am sorry. It took so long. Okay.
We're perfect. We're perfectly on time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kisses from Buenos Aires. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye. So thank you, everybody. We'll be back in 15 minutes with the next webinar. Okay.